Hey, everybody. It's Melissa Campanelli here, co-founder of the Women in Retail Leadership Circle. Welcome to Women in Retail Talks. I'm here today with Jen Say, the Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer of Levi's. We're so excited to have her here today, so welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I don't know if you remember, we met a while ago when you spoke at one of our events in San Francisco.
I do.
Yeah, great.
I do remember. Absolutely.
Awesome. So I'm just going to jump right in. I mean, we're so excited to have you. Basically, we'd just love to hear about your career journey and everything. So we'll start there. I mean, how did you sort of end up at Levi's? What led you there?
That is a good question. I've been here 20 years. I just did
Oh,
the
wow.
calculation. I know it's a long time. It's unusual in this day and age. And I just did the calculation the other day. I've been here 40% of my life. So you can figure out how old I am. Not that I wouldn't tell you. But that is a sort of startling fact. But it's a good one. It's a good place for me, and I'll talk a little bit about why. But I started my career at an advertising agency in the mid '90s at Foot Cone and Belding, as they were called then. And I didn't necessarily sort of dream of having a career in retail or in marketing. As young people do. And we were sort of on the tail end of a recession, and it was hard to get one. And I knew someone who knew someone. And so I sort of took the job, but I ended up really liking it. And I ended up working on the Levi's brand. And I'd always loved the Levi's brand, and I'd worn it since I was a kid. But it was just so cool to be able to work on advertising, which is mostly what it was back then, sort of traditional advertising, that really was kind of culture making. I left FCB, Foot Cone and Belding, and I went to the Gap, and I worked at Banana Republic for a few years. Then I did a small little stint in between at a small agency, and ultimately came here in '99. Someone asked me to come over to Levi's that I had worked with on the agency side in the early to mid '90s. And so that's how I ended up here. And I've had a lot of different jobs, obviously, in 20 years.
Great. Well, that is so interesting because that dovetails into my next question, which is tell us about your role at Levi's now. I did mention that you were the Senior Vice President and CMO, but tell us what that means and what projects you're most excited about working on.
Sure. So I'm the CMO for the company, and that means across all the brands. Levi's is the biggest. It's about 85% of our business, but we do have 3 others. So my responsibilities also include the Dockers brand, as well as 2 value denim offerings. One is called Denizen, and one is called Levi Strauss Signature, and those are sold primarily in Walmart and Target. So I oversee the portfolio of brands, and essentially I'm responsible for all brand communication, how those brands come to life at every touch point, every way, every sort of aspect of the consumer journey. So everything from, traditional television advertising to all digital, social, all the content for e-commerce. Our stores are designed and brought to life by members of my team. In a part of the organization that we call brand environment, all the PR and activations we do at things like Coachella, artist sponsorships, Levi's Stadium. So it's basically like any way the brand comes to life that isn't product, meaning jeans and all the things that go with them. Any of that is mine. I oversee all of that development, the strategy, the vision for what the brand means. I also oversee marketplace insights. So all of the ways that we research, measure our success, the ways we research product as well as marketing content, how we measure ROI on things like media spend and in-store investments. All of that sits in my area as well.
Wow, that's quite a lot of stuff that you're overseeing. I know you're probably excited about everything that you're working on, but can you talk about one that sort of like you're really excited about, something new that you're working on maybe, or like a pet project?
Yeah, I mean, I think I wouldn't even call it a pet project, but one thing that I am really excited about is in the United States. Oh, what I did not mention was all of that is global. So in the 110 countries that we operate in, I have over 400 members of the marketing team. They sit across 110 different countries. And so the way the brand comes to life and the vision we set for how the brand comes to life, that's all sort of in my area. Anyway, one of the things I'm really excited about is in the US next year, a campaign that includes advertising, but also activation, community engagement, education around voting. In 2018, leading up to the midterms, we did a big campaign around voting. It was all about encouraging voter participation. It was not partisan. It was about participation. We registered people to vote in our stores. We gave employees paid time off to vote. We spearheaded a corporate initiative with other CEOs giving employees paid time off to vote. There was advertising. We also let employees have paid time off to volunteer to help others register to vote. So it was a really sort of multi-pronged, comprehensive effort to encourage people that they needed to vote. And it was the strongest voter turnout for a midterm, I think, in over 70 years. So we're not going to say that we drove that exclusively, but we certainly feel proud to have participated in that. And so as we gear up for the presidential election in 2020, we are going to double down on those efforts to encourage voter participation. And we'll start that early next year and run all the way through November. So I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's so interesting. And it's interesting that you did it for a midterm election. Usually that's not, I don't think that's normally how companies operate or, when they're doing promos. So was that done by design, like that you wanted to start out that way and see how it went, or?
Well, I think, look, there was a lot of attention placed on the midterm, sort of more attention than has ever been placed on a midterm in my lifetime, I think. We felt like, Americans were paying attention. We felt like it was really important to educate younger voters, possibly first-time voters, as to why they needed to vote. We felt that it dovetailed nicely with our brand message around self-expression. I mean, there is nothing purer in terms of self-expression than your vote. And so we felt we had sort of credibility in the space. And again, it's not partisan. It was about participation. But truthfully, it didn't start as a marketing campaign. It started as a sort of civic engagement effort. And we just felt so strongly that getting out the vote was important. That the first piece of it was really around this idea of registering people to vote in our stores and giving employees paid time off to vote. Because we know that one of the biggest barriers to voter participation is a lot of people can't go wait in that line.
Yeah.
And so, we got a bunch of other CEOs to join on to the Time to Vote campaign. And that was the whole sort of purpose behind Time to Vote, was to give employees paid time off to vote.
Yeah. I remember reading about that. That was so exciting. And I know that Levi's is doing a lot around sort of civic issues, like you said earlier. One of them is sustainability. One of it is gun safety. Maybe you could talk a little bit about those two things. That would be great.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the Levi Strauss & Company has a long history of what we would call profits through principles. And the way we sort of think about that is it's important as a citizen in the community, as a company that employs many citizens in the community, as a brand and a company that has many constituents, the people that work here, the people that we serve, our consumers, the people that work for us in a third-party capacity. It's important to them, and it's important that we make choices that positively impact their lives. And we feel that we take that obligation very seriously as a business and as a member of this community, of the global community, but also the California community. So we have a long history of sort of behaving this way. A few examples: we integrated factories in the South way before that was legally mandated. We were the first Fortune 500 company to give same-sex partner benefits. That was in 1992, before marriage equality was even a discussion that was on the table. And I cite those two just as illustrative examples. So this isn't really new for us. What is new is that we talk about it publicly more now. The ways that we ran the business in the past, it was just sort of, we need to do this, we need to behave this way because it better serves our employees. But now we know that Gen Zs and millennials, they want to know what you stand for. So the pivot we've made in the last, I would say, couple of years is just trying to figure out, how do we talk about these things in a way that is transparent, in a way that educates people, and in a way that allows them to understand who we are in terms of how we run the business and what our brands stand for. So that's the difference, is really how do we talk about it. And I think a lot of companies are trying to figure this out now. And they're sort of going, what are we going to stand for? What are we going to stand for? That wasn't the question for us. We knew what we stood for. The question was, how are we going to communicate this in a consumer friendly fashion? And sometimes we do it through the brand, through the Levi's brand. Vote was done through the Levi's brand. And sometimes it's more of a corporate initiative. So gun safety, which you just alluded to, is a conversation that is obviously highly charged, but we have made the choice to be a part of. And it all started a couple of years ago. A consumer brought a gun into one of our stores, and it went off accidentally. Nobody was hurt, but we decided that we would simply ask consumers not to bring guns into stores, even in states where it's legal. That was just something we wanted to do to ensure the safety of our employees. Well, that was a controversial thing to do. For obvious reasons. We know this is a highly charged issue. For that reason, we'd already kind of waded into the conversation. Then we did a small program in 2018 where the proceeds of a collaboration went to Everytown. Again, we sort of got a little further involved. And then after the tragedy at Parkland, we just started to have really serious conversations about what does this mean? This affects everyone that works here. Everybody is worried about their kids every day in school. It is the issue, in addition to climate change and sustainability, that kids, Gen Zs, are thinking about. And so we have a long history of taking a stance on things that matter to the youthful generation. And so we felt that it was important, and we got involved corporately, and we initially pledged money to gun safety organizations, over $1 million. And more recently, we spearheaded an effort with global business leaders to demand change. There was a story written in the New York Times, but essentially we brought business leaders together to say, gun violence is not inevitable. It's highly preventable. We want common sense gun safety legislation, and we want it now. And it got a lot of energy and attention, when 150 CEOs sign a letter like that. It has impact, and it's meaningful. And I think the tide is really turning on this issue since the Walmart tragedy. Business leaders know that they can actually make a difference, and they can play a role in making our kids safer and our communities safer.
Yeah, I mean, that is incredible. And it's true, Levi's does sort of have a history of, being involved socially and civically. So it makes sense. And it's also very important to your, your customers and also your employees. So that makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. And then you asked about sustainability,
yeah,
which I can briefly sort of cover. That's one we've been involved in for longer than the gun safety issue, because it's literally how we make our product. And we're seeking to make a jean that leaves less of an impact on the environment. It's sort of that simple. In 2009, we introduced what we call waterless finishing, which reduces the amount of water used to make a jean. The jeans we all love that are worn in and faded and have holes, it takes water to make them look that way. So using this new process, it reduces the amount of water needed to make a jean by 96%. So that's really significant. Since then, we've open sourced that technology because we want every jean manufacturer to use it. And we've saved more than 3 billion liters of water. So that was sort of how we initially began to participate. But we have other initiatives underway. We recently made an announcement that by 2025, we aim to reduce our water usage with a focus on water-stressed areas by 50%. So, that is one of the ways the making of a jean impacts the earth, is the sort of high water use. And so we're making commitments that we are going to reduce water use. And there's myriad ways you can do that, from the finishing process to the way that cotton is grown. And so we're really committed to that. We're also committed to educating consumers about how the way that they care for jeans and the products that they buy from us can also reduce impact on the earth. Don't wash your jeans all the time. You don't need to wash them all the time. I, for one, rarely wash mine. Wear things you love, buy things that you love that last you a lifetime. I have Levi's that I've owned for 30 years. Every time I go and buy something new, I say to myself, can I see myself having this in my closet in 20 years? Will I wear it for that long? Is the style timeless? Is the quality there? And so we seek to educate consumers on that as well.
Wow, we're talking about so many different so many different issues. I feel funny jumping into the next one, but I'm just going to. So being the CMO, I'm sure, and obviously SVP, you're probably made aware of a lot of different trends and either technology trends that you're seeing every day. Are there any that are especially interesting that you're tracking, technology or retail trend-wise?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think wearable technology is something we're paying close attention to. We just launched phase 2 of our Jacquard jacket with Google. We just launched it yesterday. So that's something we're really paying attention to. I think we're in the very early days of what wearable tech looks like. And as is true with anything in the early days, it will look very different over the course of the next 5, 10, and 20 years. But it's important to get involved early and learn what works, what doesn't work, what consumers will use and what they won't. So that for us is something really important. There's all the sort of standard retail stuff, the sort of, omni-channel technologies that ensure a seamless experience for the consumer across every single channel that you operate in, everything from associate assisted ordering to kind of that never-ending supply chain. You can always see where the product is to get it to the consumer as quickly as possible. It doesn't just need to be shipped from the DC using stores as DCs, et cetera. It's technology that facilitates all of that. And RFID, which allows us to be in stock all the time, anytime we know exactly what's in the store. That's not a manual process anymore. So, all of those things are incredibly important. But I think as far as the new thing, it's this idea of wearable technology, and it's through our partnership with Google that we're really getting into that area. They obviously are technology experts, and we're apparel experts. We know what people want to wear. And so 2 great Bay Area companies coming together to kind of figure that challenge out together is exciting.
Yep, totally. So let's shift gears again. Since this is going to be part of our Women in Retail leadership content, we love to hear about leadership and leadership styles. So let's talk a little bit about that now. So how would you describe your leadership style, or how would someone that describe it?
I would say collaborative, inclusive, kind of real. Like, I like people to know who I am. I want them to feel that they can be who they are in the workplace. I would say values led. There's not a lot of room for meanness and bad behavior, and we're respectful, we're thoughtful, we lead with our values. I think those are things that probably would pop in the way that I am described as a leader by my peers and also by my team. Thoughtful, strategic, all the things you need. But, as far as like, what are the leadership qualities?
Yeah,
I would say that is probably what would pop. And I talk fast. I talk too fast. That's the, that's the
one. So this one, I would love to hear what you have to say about this. So I know that you had been a professional gymnast at one point in your career. Remember we talked about that?
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about how that experience helped you become a leader?
Sure. So I was a very serious athlete as a child, so my childhood was very unusual. I was on my first national team at 10, I think. I was training 40, 50 hours a week by the time I was 10. I moved away from home and lived on my own when I was 13. It's a really, really tough sport. I was on the national team for 8 years. I was a national champion in 1986. There were a lot of incredibly joyful moments, things I'm really, really proud of, but there were some really, really low moments. And it is a sport, and there's been a lot in the news lately about it, that is rife with cruelty and abuse. And so I knew I never wanted to be in an environment like that again, and I didn't want to participate in one. I wanted to be in one where the individual is valued and respected and honored. And so I would say, in that way, it absolutely informs my style of leadership. Coaching in gymnastics is authoritarian at its very worst. And so that is not a style of behavior that I'm ever going to adopt, even subtly. I think it was such a difficult, grueling childhood. There is a part of me that's like, nothing will ever be that hard again. Nothing. Like, this is fun. This is easy. People say it's stressful. This is not stressful. I mean, honestly, like performing on a 4-inch wide beam at 13 in front of thousands of people and having your coaches berate you after for, getting a 9.6 instead of a 10, like that's stressful. This is not stressful. Training 8 hours a day, getting weighed in 3 times, not eating anything, having a broken ankle while you're training, like that's hard. This is fun. this is lucky. I'm lucky I get to do this. And so I just sort of have a different orientation to the work. And, it is hard, but we can all enjoy it together. We're a team. I love the team environment. Gymnastics is an individual sport. I love being part of a team and leading a team and having fun with the team and reminding everybody that, at the end of the day, we're provided this incredible opportunity to make a difference because of the company and the brand we work for, and that's a gift. And we should have fun. It's jeans in the end. At the end of the day, it is just jeans. But because of the iconic status of this company and the way we've led with our values, we have the opportunity to be more than that. And so it's hard to sort of, at a certain point, you can't parse apart who you are and why you are that way. But I think in all the ways I just mentioned, it informs how I lead and the sort of environment that I want to create for the people that I work with. And I think it's also made me pretty fearless and outspoken because I endured a really cruel and abusive culture for a long time. And so I'm just so passionate about doing the right thing. Yeah. And I think, look, as leaders, we have the opportunity. We have the opportunity to ensure gender pay equity. We have the opportunity to ensure that we have a diverse team with diverse perspectives represented. We're not just here to make ads. I can create a workforce that represents fairness and equity in the future. And so I take that very seriously. And I just, having spent a childhood where I was mistreated as a child, I watched others be mistreated. I am passionate about that, about doing the right thing.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, it's true. You probably have a totally different perspective, and it's probably hard for you to sit by and watch things that you feel are not, being handled correctly. So I'm sure that's really interesting.
Yeah, I have a very big mouth around around those things. I think I've grown into it. I was not quite as outspoken when I was younger because I was less confident in my viewpoint, but now I am. And I think I'm in the right place for that. This company appreciates it. And I think it's possible you could grow up in that environment and be silenced permanently because absolute obedience from the athlete is what is required. And I took the opposite route, which was to become not obedient at all, which is, I like this much better.
So you talked a little bit about your workforce. How do you hire and what do you believe makes a great team?
Well, I think, look, on a marketing team, you have such widely varying kind of capabilities, right? I have a marketing operations lead who's highly operational and analytical, and I have a head of creative who is very creative and sort of obsessed with what's happening in culture, and they have different ways of thinking and different ways of operating. I think, for this place, I need to know that you share the values of the company and that you love this brand. That's the first thing, because if you come and you work here and you don't have that, it doesn't work that well. It just doesn't. The people that work here and that last and that I think do a good job here really love this brand and they understand it and it's in their veins. And so that is the first thing. And then of course you just look for the right. So I want varied backgrounds and experience. The team makeup is everything, and you want diversity of experience. You want racial diversity. I want age diversity. The sort of the functional capabilities, that's the bar. That's the sort of low bar. And then on top of that, I look for all of this other stuff, their love of Levi's, their values orientation, diversity of background and all of that stuff. And for us, one of the important things is, we seek to put our brand at the center of the story and the center of culture. And so I think a real sense of cultural acuity and kind of what's happening in the world and how messages will land and how we can sort of be a part of that. That's really important here in a way that it might not be at another, I don't want to say anything disparaging about, but at a packaged goods brand, that might be less important than it is here.
Right. So I have a couple more questions. So what is the best advice you've ever received?
Well, I think the best advice can I get two? I think one was that I needed to advocate for myself more. I think like a lot of women, I sort of assumed for a very long time that if I put my head down and did a good job, that I would just be recognized, that somebody would say, hey, look at Jen, she's doing a great job, let's promote her. And the world does not work that way. You need to be telling people what you want. You need to tell them what you did and what you achieved and how you contributed and what you want your next role to be. And you need to advocate for yourself. And I think women are often afraid that that feels boastful. And that's not, maybe the kind of person they want to be, or I won't speak for all women, but I certainly felt that way. It felt out of sync with my personality. But if you don't do it, it will not happen. They will think you're perfectly happy to sit there and just do that job that they gave you, even if you've exceeded all expectations. So you really have to advocate for yourself. And that was a hard one for me, and I needed to find the right words. And I still don't think I'm great at it, but that was a good piece of advice. And then I think the other one, and it sort of goes, it's in sync with this advocating for yourself. I think when you advocate yourself when it comes to pay and pay equity and, being paid what you're worth, I think women are often afraid to have this conversation and push too hard or be too pushy here as well. And a friend of mine I always was, I won't speak for all women, but all the studies show that women push less hard on this point, right? That men push much harder on it. And somebody once told me, like, you need to just sort of set that aside from yourself. You have to look at it as you have to go in there and you have to negotiate a salary for yourself that is fair. Right. So that you can set it aside and it's not a factor in how you come to work every day. It should be a non-factor, right? It's a hygiene factor. It's a clean bathroom, right? If you're angry about it and you're resentful and you feel that you're underpaid versus your contributions or versus your peers, then that will interfere with the work and your contributions. And so you need to negotiate that and then set it aside. And when I thought about it that way, it became easier for me, but it was always very hard for me. It's still hard for me. And I think you kind of got to find the words that work for you. You can't use someone else's words to do it, but you have to find the words that work for you. And it enables you to deliver your best work, right? Because you're not distracted by the unfairness,
Wow, those are two great points. That's excellent. Okay, so we're going to close it out with if you could just tell our listeners a little bit about like a goal, maybe a personal goal or professional goal that you're focusing on as we end 2019, even into 2020.
So a lot of my goals are, can I give one that's not related to work?
Yeah, personal or professional.
Okay, good. Yeah. So I think, for me, I've always been very interested in creative pursuits outside of work. I wrote a book in 2008 that was a memoir about my experience in gymnastics. And I thought early on when I was much younger that I would pursue a life that was sort of exclusively creative, whether it was writing or filmmaking. And that isn't necessarily how my life kind of played out, which is fine because I love this career and it gives me tons of opportunity to do really creative stuff. But I still have this desire to do these sort of creative passion projects. So I am in the process of making a documentary. So hopefully that will be completed next year.
Wow.
And you will be able to see it, but I can't say where yet. But it's already sort of purchased and will be distributed. So more on that later. That's exciting, and that's my sort of big personal goal that's on the horizon. And I would like to write another book. That is the other thing I would like to do, though I have not started it yet. I have ideas.
So would it be a nonfiction book, or would it be more of a memoir, part 2, or would it be more of a fiction book?
It would be a memoir part 2. Yeah.
Cool.
So I have to gather up my energy because it's consuming. But those are my main goals. And then just continuing to be able to do work here that impacts people and makes people think differently about the world and maybe teaches them something. And of course, lets people know about all the great products we make at Levi's. But I think the magic of this brand is so much more than what we make. And that's what's cool. That's what's cool about what we get to do every day.
I remember, this is sort of an off the topic, but I remember Chip Bird was telling the story at an event once where he was at a hostel when he was traveling around as a youth.
Yeah, it's a good story.
He left his wallet and his Levi's at the hostel, and he came back and the wallet was still there, but the Levi's were gone. And I thought that was so great. I mean, that's
a great story.
Yeah,
that's the value of the brand. I mean, we always talk about our campaign, or our sort of headline is "Live in Levi's," and the idea behind it is that everyone has a Levi's story, which is true. And the one I always tell is about going to Moscow in 1986 before the wall came down to compete at the Goodwill Games, the first ever Goodwill Games as a gymnast. And I was told, bring Levi's 501s because the Russians will want to trade with you. And they were the best, best team in the country, in the world by far. And I brought like 10 pairs of 501s in very tiny sizes that I got at Macy's in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and traded them all for leotards from famous Russian gymnasts. And so, that's the sort of genesis of why he tells that story, because we always say everyone has a Levi story. And when you really press people, they have really good, really interesting stories. I love Chips. It's a great one. And it always gets a laugh.
Great. Well, anyway, I think with that, we'll have to end it. But thank you so much, Jen, for your answers and for your energy. And we're so excited that you agreed to do this podcast with us today. So thank you so much. Yeah. And good luck with everything. And hopefully
thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at wirlc.com/podcast for show notes. Women in Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Women in Retail Talks.